Hi, I'm Ken Candelas, and welcome to another episode of Metal Mastermind. Now today, I want to actually give a brief shout out to Justin Coletti from Sonic Scoop, because this was a video that actually inspired me on how to think about criticism and talking about your music to others. Sonic Scoop is a very good resource for audio engineers, by the way. If you don't know about it, go ahead and check them out. Now, taking criticism, when you're very attached to your art, criticism can feel like a knife in your chest. But part of criticism can be, of course, very useful. I don't think that's something that people would normally argue against. But how to take criticism and use it to your benefit can be very tricky if you're falling victim to your own insecurities. And so that's what I want to address today. Is how do you overcome some of the insecurities that you might have about your music that make you feel defensive? I myself, maybe growing up, I was surrounded by artistic folk all the time. So I think I felt a lot of that pressure to do really good in my art. And I would be criticized a little bit more strenuously than I think the normal person because of that. And for better or for worse, it definitely improved my skills. It allowed me to become the artist that I am today. But of course, these sorts of things can be taxing on somebody's mind, right? Imagine, right, as a child, you're Michael Jackson and you got to live up to that kind of expectation. That's kind of nuts, isn't it? In today's world, where there is a lot of conflicting ideas about what it means to be politically correct and all that stuff, I think it's safe to say that some people maybe don't know where they stand on how they should react when it comes to criticism. Because what you believe in and what somebody else believes in can be two different things. And just because somebody believes something else does not mean that they're wrong. And it also doesn't mean that you're necessarily wrong either. But what is the value of having the criticism in the first place? If you're like me, I actually prefer to receive critique from people who are either respected in the industry, but I'm not enormously close with. So maybe colleagues or something like that who have experience that I can trust and they'll give me an honest answer. Or it will be even someone that I admire, that I will really consider. For example, in my case, when I was creating Homeric, The Circle of Dead Children, I had Michael Romeo give me some of that information about my orchestration. And I took that really to heart as something I needed to do for my music in order to get it to the next level. That experience with Michael Romeo had me reorchestrating. It took me an entire year to do it, and I redid all my samples with higher resolution stuff, better quality samples, etc. And it elevated Homeric, The Circle of Dead Children, way farther than I expected. It was a production value portion that needed attention, as well as some attention to detail on my counterpoint and how it worked against guitars and things like cello players or bassoons and tubas and bass guitars, and those kinds of orchestral instrument clashes and where to play certain ranges were really brought to my attention in that conversation. So going forward with my experience that Mike told me I needed to focus on, I to myself, well, you know what? If this were my mother, I probably would have said, "Ma, you don't know what you're talking about," or whatever, because I would have been a defensive child. But hearing it from someone like an idol made all the difference to me. Who do you value? Who are the people that you look to and respect that if they were to give you an actual critique, you wouldn't be defensive about it? Find that person first. Gain the confidence from what you're trying to do with your music first. Also, as Justin Coletti was saying on his episode on Sonic Scoop, don't talk about your music too much to other people who don't necessarily understand. When you don't talk about your music, it forces you to make progress on your music because, well, talking about it might make you feel better that you might be doing something, but maybe you aren't actually doing something. Maybe you're hiding. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you agree with that statement, then what is the takeaway? Put your head down, get to work, make sure you're creating quality stuff. And when you're asking for a critique, and also shout out to Nick Z, our metal producer, overlord, instructor, he says this in his course to all students who are learning mixing. Mix crit, right? Find someone you trust, a buddy that you know they have good ears. Those kinds of people you're going to respect the information from, because there's going to be more of the care into giving you something that will help you grow. And that's important, because if I were to show people online, as, you know, let's say on a random forum, for example, I don't know who's what from who. They can just say, hey, your stuff is bullcrap. And maybe, but that wasn't very helpful, was it? Now, when you take information and maybe, let's say you do get something like, how do you handle receiving information from trolls? Well, one, you could brush it off and not really pay attention to it. That's one. But two, you might think, where was this person in their mindset to be able to say something like that? Did it have something at all to do with your music? Probably not. Probably maybe had a bad day, you know. It probably wasn't anything personal that you needed to be worried about. So don't take too much personal offense to people's preferences, because everybody has their own. You would also do well to listen to your fans. Maybe if you're trying to continue your relationships with your fans, you might include them in part of your process. Maybe that could be something that you offer only to your biggest of fans, period. Like your super fan. Offer that opportunity for them to review your stuff. That could be fun. Either way, critique is an important part of our growth. If we don't offer ourselves to critique, we live in our own bubble and we don't necessarily add to the positive whole of the world. I believe that our music, it's supposed to add to the beauty of being a human. Share your music with the world. Let the world give you its energy back, but don't be afraid of what comes along with that. By being in the music industry, you have decided to do something within the public eye. That's a given. When you are in the public eye, you need to have thick skin, but you should also remain thin-skulled so that you can learn new things, but don't let the side commentary get to you. Hopefully this helps you in your travels, and as we always say on Metal Mastermind, always remember to create your own sound.